Hi, everyone. This is Thursday, May 15th, and our topic tonight is the Pope. So, looking forward to talking with you all tonight. Leo's going to start us out with our icebreaker question. And so, if you would just say the name that you would like to be called tonight and your pronouns and the answer to the icebreaker question. And we'll just do that real quickly. I think this is a great way to just open our sessions. It gets us to know a little bit of something just random about each person. And it's just a low key way to get to know each other better. And I love this way that we start our sessions. I hope you do too.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Leo. Pronouns are he, him. And today's icebreaker is what's something that comforts you? For me, it would be, of course, God and also gardening. Yes.
Did you say your name and
Yes.
okay. Is Jared gonna?
He's right here.
Names, let's see. Jared, pronouns, let's see, all of them. Let's see. I miss Marco. And let me see. Something that brings me comfort is the new Finch app that the Next Gen are all about. It's super duper cute and I love it. And also this kitty.
Finch app? Is that what you said?
Yes. It's like a little self-care app where you take care of a little bird. It's super cute.
Oh, sweet. Okay. Well, Marco's you mentioned Marco. He's at the movies and he might be able to show up before the end. So Suzette, why don't you go next?
I am Suzette, she, her. And the thing I think that comforts me the most is when a friend actually reaches out to me when I don't expect it. And that happened today. And so that's very comforting to me. It's unexpected and it's genuine. So that's it.
Okay. Kim?
The main thing that comforts me is my dogs, because they are so calming, and especially when one of the little ones, she doesn't like to be picked up or held, but when she comes to me and wants to lay on my chest and just let me pet her and rub her belly so she could, do her little leg scratching stuff, that just brings me a lot of comfort. And Baxter, he stays out with me at night, and the girls have to come into the room, but he lets me hold him, and cuddle him, and it's just like it feels like all my problems just melt away. And I'm sorry, I'm Kim, she, her.
Awesome. Okay, Huey.
Usually, no preference on pronouns. Things that comfort me, I'm trying to decide between music or food. So
those are both wonderful things. Okay. I'm Carol, she, her, and when you said comfort, the first thing I thought of was a teddy bear. Although food and music make a great deal of, but so when I think of teddy bears, I think of just hugging a teddy bear. So, but hugging a person is even better. So I'm going to say hugs. So, Mona, feel free to jump in if you like, and if not, that's fine. We'll go on to our topic. Our topic tonight is it is the Pope. So we have a new Pope. Leo the 14th is what he has chosen to call himself. And I think and the influence of the Pope goes way beyond just Catholics. So there's so many ways we could start here. The role of Pope was is said to have been founded when Jesus called Peter the rock that the church would be founded on. And so Peter is considered the first pope. And, but it wasn't really, didn't really become the role that's more similar to what it is now until about the 4th century. So, so who wants to start with, you can either start with what you, I think Leo's the one that I think has the most Catholic background in our group. So Leo, do you have things to say about the role of the Pope or about this particular Pope that you'd like to share?
No, not really. Let me think about it, and then I'll probably have something to say.
Okay.
Blank right now.
Okay. Well, some things that I've learned about this Pope, he was Cardinal Robert Prevost before he was put in this position as Pope. He went to a seminary that really pushed in the 1970s for when he was 70s and early 80s when he was in school. It really pushed for the full inclusion of women in the church, including ordination. There's no record of him stepping forward and saying that. And he seems to be just taking the role of women having more leadership roles in the church, like they did in some of the Peruvian districts where he was. He was born here, was it Chicago? I think I remember. And then he was in Peru for more than 20 years and carries dual citizenship there. He's multilingual. He chose not to speak in English at his first opportunity to speak to us as Pope, and I found that interesting and beautiful. And people keep calling him the first American Pope, but I think that's a very imperialistic way of talking about it. Because we did have a Pope from Argentina, and to act like South America or Central America is not part of the Americas, I think is a very U.S. centric way of talking in imperialistic terms. So I think it's okay to say he's the first president that was born in the US, but let's not use the term that he's the first American. So don't really know where he seems to be just continuing the stance of the Vatican on women should not be ordained as deacons or priests. So that's one stance. He seems to have a strong call for peace, and that seemed to be the focus of his initial speech. Even to the point of communication that is free from aggression. So, how are y'all feeling like this is a good thing or a positive move? Or were there candidates that you would have rather seen, like perhaps the cardinal from the Philippines that was also in consideration? There was the one from the Philippines seemed to be more open toward LGBTQIA plus in inclusion, and so that would have been good, and it would have been nice to have essentially our first Pope from Asia. That would have been nice. Suzette, were you about to say something?
Oh, I'm just gonna say that I have more thoughts than things to say, but I find it, maybe I was hoping it draws a lot more attention to the United States, which I don't understand at this point in time. He will hopefully more than likely outlive the current administration, and that will, as far as power goes, and you know, uh, how we view power is quite a dichotomy. And I think that religious power and political power are both kind of the same thing. I don't see a lot different with it. I think although he's head of a religion or head of a church or head of, the spiritual leader of his flock, I think there's still a lot of decisions that are just made for people rather than, really giving it a more democratic feel and look about it. It seems like the Pope has always been a symbolic figurehead, and while they're vastly rich, I don't really know what kind of power the Pope has. I do know when the Pope goes to other countries, those countries just converge, and it's a big deal. So being unfamiliar with, what the Pope really means to anyone outside of Catholicism is kind of a mystery to me. Again, I see politics and religion in this respect kind of in the same figurehead standpoint. And it just, nothing is sitting well with me about any of it. And just the fact that he is from the United States made me wonder how they came up with that, since we feel so unpopular right now. So that's kind of where my thinking is. Wasn't really like anything profound to say about what I think or how I feel. It's just, observations,
I
really.
think that's incredibly profound to point out that religious power and political power are so tied in and close together. And I don't think there's anything really set in stone about the power of the Pope. I think it's more just
And
the
what
I
were we
mean,
doing there the day before the Pope died? Like, I don't understand any of it. It feels political to me.
yes, it is. I think it's very political, just like any influence I mean, there's just a huge influence that the Pope has all over the world, just like I mean, the Dalai Lama has a great uh, political power as
Mhm.
well as religious instruction, and I think it's 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 really easy for the Pope to sway masses even outside of Catholicism. But since there are so many Catholics in the world, and the Pope is the voice of God for Catholics, um, that's, I mean, that's, correct me if I'm wrong, someone, but I believe that's how the Pope is considered to be the voice of God, and everything is filtered, that's filtered through the Pope. That's one of the reasons I think I could never be Catholic.
Yeah.
And, but Catholicism, I think, means different things to different people. And there are, I mean, the Pope is the head of the Roman Catholic Church. There are groups. When my friend Reg is a priest in the independent Catholic movement, which has nothing to do with the Pope, as I understand it. But in general, when people talking about Catholics, they're talking about Roman Catholics, and the Pope is the voice of God. So that is um, very profound. Leo or Jared?
So there was a hot minute ago a quote by the Vatican where they said that there would never be an American pope until the empire in the West is waning, right? I think you know that we can always conjecture on why, right? Like there's quite a few reasons, right? You know, like the fact that America's foreign policy has dominated the lands for a hot minute, and then putting a pope that's American while they are, you know, that's like world domination tier stuff, right? You know, that can be a little bit abusive, right? And it sends
How it feels.
it sends a terrible message. So,
Yeah.
but now it seems like honestly the safest time because of how ill-respected the nation has become. Like literally, like it is like no one respects it, no one cares, no one left the unions, right? Like like all the world unions where all the world leaders get together, not a member of a single one, right? Like it's just a laughing stock, and it would be, you know, it makes sense, and perhaps it's an attempt to address like directly the orange regime, because there's a lot, you know, as much as there's a lot of Catholics that are like the term is like Catholic-evangelicals, where they're essentially like Catholics that are like Trump curious, right? Catholics that are like you know, white supremacy, not Christian nationalists curious, right? And you know, to create a direct dialogue with those people, perhaps that's the intent, right? Because you know, current pope, you know, he's a neutral about a lot of things that you know, I guess that makes sense, whatever, but he's not neutral about his disdain for what's happening. So I guess that matters. I don't know.
You mean what's like about what's happened in the U.S.?
In the U.S., the foreign policy of the wars that are occurring currently, right? The aggressive nature of, you know, the current situation, right? Like the, you know, like the mass deportation, you know, all these things, right? These little subtle stances that he takes, right, do help, right, to bring a sort of schism in the hearts of the people who care about the Catholic Church and also care about Trump. So it makes sense because you wouldn't have you know, like I'm gonna bring race into it because race is into it. A lot of people only listen to people who look like them when they have, you know, in their takes, right? Especially those that are ignorant, right? Especially those that are right-leaning, right? And it is harder for them to, you know, connect, right, with a face that perhaps doesn't look like theirs, and just like throw it all away, right? In this way, you get somebody who does look like them, right, who also has an opposing view, which makes it a lot more seductive for, you know, the nation of Trumpers that exists currently. So it might be useful. It might have been a plan. It might have been, you know, an attempt to like help whatever's going on. I don't know. I'm not a mind reader, but I see where they're going.
Well, there was a lot of voiced opposition to having any connection to the U.S. in the office of the Pope. just because, like Suzette said, the imbalance of power and all of that. But a lot of the media is touting him as a not so American. Because of his time, because of his other because he spent so much time elsewhere and outside of the US, and because he is multilingual and well traveled, and seems to really connect with the marginalized and the poor particularly. So there's that. And I wanted to make one other point, but I'll put that off a minute. Okay. Leo?
Yeah, along with like what my husband said, I think that he was put and they chose him so that he could, I think it would be easier for him to spread the word of love in the United States than any other pope. And hopefully maybe Trump will listen. But you know what historically has happened, right? That that any time that a revolution forms, like, you know, civil war or anything like that, there's always been a person of peace, right? There's always been a person of peace. We're going to do this with peace. Martin Luther King, Julio Cesar Chavez, you know, it's just, you can go on and on and on the list, that there always comes a person of peace before the people raise up and fight. And maybe that'll happen. Who knows?
Do you think he is a person of peace?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I certainly wouldn't want to be, I think many of us would not want to be judged by the actions or opinions of close family members, but there was a lot of things on the media about his brother being a MAGA supporter. So I don't know, I doubt, and even the brother, I think, talked about how different they were even growing up, how Robert was more of a peaceful, less less aggressive person. But even when describing him, like from that, since he came from a seminary that was so liberal, and I think a lot of people that were his classmates said, well, he isn't the kind of person to go to a protest or even go to a counter protest, and he's more middle of the road kind of thing, which I find a little disheartening. I like people who speak up, take a side. As lines of one of my favorite songs, "Silence is violence for women and poor people." If
Well,
more people were screaming.
well, you know, that's what they said about Martin Luther King, because his own people were starting to turn against him, because they're like, you're not being violent, you're just in the middle, like, you know, and they were starting to turn against him. It's like people wanted him to actually like stand up and fight.
And then as time came, right, you know, he actually encouraged more and more revolutionary action, and he started shifting, you know, modeling a push towards the more revolutionary mind of thinking, and then was killed.
And hopefully that doesn't happen with this pope, because
assassinate a pope?
Because if they assassinate, you know, like historically speaking, like heroes normally get assassinated or killed, you know. And so it's just something that I've noticed.
Well, you make some really good analogies.
I think the crucial analogy though is highlighting that he fortunately carried on with Pope Francis's stance on Gaza because the Catholic Church has had during the Holocaust. The Catholic Church was undeniably quite silent in that situation. And it cost them a lot of likes on Facebook, a lot of hate mail, a lot of, honestly, it boosted up a lot of the other systems of faith because of their silence, right? And so I make that comparison, that analogy to say, I would only imagine what would have happened during the Holocaust if the Pope was German, right? Like if the Pope was actually a citizen that was from the nation that was personally watching the decline, right? How much of a sway could a Pope had to the people who were being pulled by Hitler's appeal to not just emotions but religious supremacy, because he did use a lot of religion in his politic, right? Like the swastika is an appropriated Indian, like Hindu, like symbol, right? Like he was like quite religious in his dialect, and to have a pope that actually lifted a finger, and looked like the German people, right? Might have made a difference. I don't know, but I guess we get to model that in reality with Trump here. I'm not saying that he's like Hitler or anything. That's weird. What a weird comparison. But now we get to see a situation like that play out.
Well, I don't know how much he has influence, because I mean his older brother in Florida is a big Trump supporter and have put in social media with very bad words about Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden and things like that. So maybe he'll have similar family issues as us, because he has imposed against some Trump policies and stuff, but no, he can convert his own family.
Well,
but I think he could.
I don't feel like I have a whole lot of influence on my brothers.
Right. So whether Pope or not, you can't really change your family. But I think he is actually a compromise between the progressive and the conservative in the Catholic faction, because I don't think he is as progressive as Pope Francis, and one of the top candidates, like the one from Philippines, you say he is more on the progressive liberal end of the Catholic candidates, and then there are some that are way more conservative, and I think Pope Leo is kind of a compromise, someone that's in the middle. He carried on Pope Francis' progressive view, or the traditional Catholic views on immigrations and things like that, the poor, but then he is not as supportive about gender identities and LGBTQ plus people from his former writing or speech, unless he have changed his view more recently. But
he certainly hasn't made it public if he's changed about that. So I guess it'll be interesting to see as we move forward. His background, I wonder how his background as an Augustinian will influence things. Whereas, I mean, people seem to know a little bit more about like Franciscans or organizations like that, but Augustinians aren't as well known, and one of the things that I liked that I read about just the Augustinian order, um, not so much that they emphasize mission outreach, but that they do emphasize the importance of listening widely before making decisions. So that it would really be nice if we could get more dialogue going across these divides. But I think a person who is considered a moderate, who's considered kind of middle of the road, is often a compromise, and his coat of arms speaks to that too. It's in the one we are one. And I think sometimes church organizations oftentimes sacrifice justice on the altar of unity, on the altar of saying, let's pacify everyone, and we have to all think the same, we have to all believe the same, and that's to me how cultish thinking gets started, and it's hard to have a conversation if how do I put it? I'm not sure I'm expressing this very well. But a pope sets the message for the Roman Catholic Church, and and it's it is certainly not encouraged to question that or go against that in any way, and I find that very um, uh, hard to swallow. Just whereas Suzette, you said it's not very democratic, and yeah, I think the church is certainly not created to be democratic at all. It's created to be authoritarian, and that's just that amount of power to me is somewhat frightening.
When I think Catholic, I hear Roman Catholic Church. So, in my opinion, the Roman piece is the piece that reminds me of some of the things that were done in the name of God or in the name of the Lord, and it's still that way everywhere, all over the world in certain religions. But I'm just saying that it's been a very powerful church at one time. Who's to say anything at this point in time? Everything that I once believed has been turned upside down, and thinking that we live in a rational society. So, just again, the little coinky dink of being an American pope, that, and in such an administration, in such a time and place, that it all just seems really weird to me. Like, I don't get it. How could they do that? How could they pick an American pope? And it's just, I'm sure I'm really like thinking outside the box, but it just doesn't feel okay. I don't know this guy. I never heard of him. If he's American, how come they knew this guy, they knew the Pope was very sick, and I don't know. I just it's too unfamiliar to me. It's too the things that kept me having balance with my belief system have been eroded by certain things that have happened in recent history. So I don't know what to think of any of it. So I'm just gonna like sit back and eat my popcorn. I don't know.
Well, that's certainly yeah, sometimes it feels like it's out of our hands anyway. And I mean the way that a pope is chosen you know, it's not an election, it's not a democratic process. It's a group of men who are well entrenched in the Catholic Church, and they all have something to gain or lose by each choice. And you know, and like you said, it's power. And what do we always say? Power corrupts. And so it's very hard to think about being in that position without having the temptation to use the power in a very what's the word, selfish way, in a way that doesn't take into consideration the 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 matters of justice or inclusion, or but I mean, but that's their job. So one has to hold out hope that as Jared was alluding to earlier, or saying earlier, maybe just the balance of power between the church and the the administration in this country, maybe it'll have a positive influence that one can hope.
Because, and, you know, I liked the prior pope. I didn't have a problem with him. He was a pretty good guy, in my opinion. But, you know, from what I observed, he seemed very, I mean, just the way he died, so and was buried in a pine box and without pomp and circumstance, and you know, wanting to live in a humble home rather than in a palace. You know, that's yeah, I don't know what this guy's.
This guy already has changed some of that by coming out in you know, full regalia, and so already that's different than Francis. Leo and Jared.
So, and I think it's really important to highlight the attachment to good that some people have, right? Because, you know, our relationship with our higher power, our pursuits for towards good, are actually, in a lot of cases, two completely different things, right? You know, our pursuit for justice, peace, all these things, right? You know, they are distinct, actually. Like you know, you don't, for instance, you don't do good things because you're going to get good things, actually, because in this world, good things, actually, the good guys don't win. You know, I'm so sorry, but Jeff Bezos, that dude from Tesla, Trump, they're still breathing. And you know, like, and they're living luxuriously in their delusion, right? Like there are people who live rich racist lives and then they die, happy deaths. And you know, it's not about that. If it was, then it would be kind of messed up, you know. And also it's kind of a challenge too for us as people who love God. We're kind of encouraged to, with all this widespread questionability of people in positions of power, with all this widespread, you know, unrest, right? Chaos, death, doom, destruction, right? We aren't distracted from our God, right? Because if you're with a crowd of people and they're all about God, right? If you're with a nation of people and they're all about God and they're all doing the right thing, right? It's easy to get led astray in the performance of the ritual and the performance of the kneeling, the raising, right? But when you see that these people that aren't winning, why do you love your God? Is it because you want success? Is it because you want money? Is it because you want a sky daddy to give you all the fun things? No, it's a lot easier to make that decision because it's out of love. It's out of love, out of nothing but love. And so, you know, the presence of the contrast of the evil, of the questionable morality that we see, it can be very useful for us to let go even our attachment to this idea of the right person, of heroes, of good people, right? And look towards our relationship with our higher power, actually pay attention to them and not look for some sort of father figure to save the day. Oh, I'm sorry, Pope to save the day.
Well, that was a very good way of describing the Pope as a father figure. But I don't know, I have to challenge some of the things that you said about, you know, the bad guys don't always win, and power doesn't always, you know, I mean, the most powerful force on earth is love.
Honey,
And
you
our God is powerful, and I have to believe that. I have to believe our God is love, and I mean, we just celebrated Easter, and and at some level, you know, whether it's a literal resurrection or not, most people who profess Christianity believe in some form of resurrection, of love continuing, of life going on even after the bad things, of spring returning. the You know, there's I just can't be as pessimistic. Yes, Bezos is winning some battles, and Elon is, you know, getting the power that has been bestowed on him for now. But do I think that those forces are going to win in the end? I can't. I just can't believe that, and otherwise I would give up hope and not even get up in the morning. All right, Suzanne.
I just wanted to have, because when you were saying you said Easter, and then I thought about all of that, and I said, when I know I've discussed this before in this room, but I remember as a child, my grandparents were devout Catholics, and my grandmother going to church. We would walk because she didn't drive. We would walk to her little church around the corner from her apartment in Brooklyn, and she would go light candles, and she said that my grandfather had to be stuck in purgatory. That's what she thought. And so she would go light a candle. She was doing penance for him. And I don't completely understand the concept of that, but I do know that there's some penance and purgatory and other things coming for some of these people that are, using religion as a political tool or a power grab or whatever. So whether it's political, whether it's, our God sees us as we are. And despite the fact that these people want you to believe otherwise, I'm either all powerful or I'm all powerful, but I'm a really good guy, whatever, our God sees us as we are. And those people, there will be consequences. If it's not now, it's going to be. And, I don't control any of it. I just have to have my faith. And that is how I live every single day, in faith. Because I can't understand half of what's going on.
Beautifully said and inspiring.
I'm with you, Suzette, because I do think that there are some Catholics that, in not so many words, drink the Kool-Aid, and they believe everything that the Pope says it has to be done. And I'm a person that always questions everything. You can ask my husband, I question everything. And it's like, not necessarily. I don't agree with a lot of things that the Catholic Church says. And that's one of the main reasons too that we left the Catholic Church. One of the main reasons being because they don't accept, us as fully in the Catholic Church, but also so many other things that go on in the Catholic Church. And there are a lot of Catholics that no matter what the Pope says or the priest says, they're gonna go with what they say. And I'm like, to each their own, but
Well, that is kind of how it's set up.
yeah.
And
Reverend
then
Mona
thinking
has her
back
hand
as-
raised.
I'm sorry.
did you see Huey?
I didn't hear you, Huey. Sorry.
Oh, I just say I saw that Reverend Mona has her hand raised. I just wonder if she has something to say.
Oh, yeah.
Reverend.
Hi, Reverend Mona.
Hi. It's always the Holy See is a very tricky thing, and it's really all about politics, even within them. So you have to remember there's a strong history that you have to understand of not just the Roman Catholic Church, but because of the church. And we know that it's all about power and control. And that's how the church has been. And the church in early days did not want Bibles to be mass produced because they didn't want the people to come to a summation on their own. They wanted to be able to dictate to the people what it is and how to believe. Okay. And there are some people of faith who still believe that they only believe what the church teaches them. And that's okay, because that's where they are on their journey.
Mhm.
Now, as far as this Pope, as the former Pope had a will. He decided how it is that he was going to be buried, and he didn't have the circumstance as in other popes because he didn't desire it. He didn't plan it. He was a simple pope, and so therefore they adhered to his wishes. It wasn't that out of any other means. Just like Queen Elizabeth, when she passed on, at the time she had to develop her own end of life journey, and she chose it to be as elaborate as it was. So a lot of that is controlled by the desire of the Pope, who, once you become Pope, then you set these things up if anything should happen to you. No one thought that after we elected Pope Francis I, that he would die so soon within 30 days of his reign, and I have an opinion about that too. I think also that was a political thing, but in anything, there is corruption. In anything, there is political backlash. Control of the church is a really big thing, just like government is. You're going to have pros and cons and sides in everything. Now, I was curious to see who they were going to choose, because I didn't know if, with the environment, the way that the world is at the moment, if we were going to revert back to old ways, old dictatorial ways, old controlled ways that had been in the past, or if we were going to continue the forward movement that Francis had in motion. And so I think the collective decided that they did not want to. I really thought they were going to elect an Italian Pope to truly to go back to the old ways, simply because of the way that the world is right now. Now, as far as this Pope being American, he's only American by birth. He left the United States. He spent most of his time outside of the United States. So the only reason why he's labeled the first American Pope is because of where he was born. Okay. For the most part, he hasn't really been in the United States for so long. And I think that was to his advantage. And it was to his advantage that he was in the same mindset as Francis. I think that he'll have a long, unless they decide to
Yeah.
get rid of him, like they did, in my opinion, as Pope John the First. But I think that he'll be fine. I think he'll be a steady voice of reason in this crazy world that we're living in right now. And so I think he'll be a balance, and he will continue to remind us about the love. But the church, you either got to love it or you don't love it. When you think about all the people that died in the name of the church, and all the, either you believe this or you die, it's a harsh reality about, and we have to come to face, and it still exists today. If you want to be a part of this denomination, well, then you can't cut your hair, and you can't wear elaborate clothes, and you can't have your dress, above your knee, and all these kind of rules that people put. These are human-made rules. These are human-made rules. And so it's all about believing in our spiritual growth and a power greater than ourselves. Okay. And you either love it or you don't love it. There are things about the Roman Catholic Church that I love. It is my foundation, and it will continue to be my foundation. And it's good to have transitions at time. It's good to have pomp and ceremony sometimes. It is. It's a good thing for us to remember, because it puts us in a state of mind, just like a mantra puts us in a state of mind. It puts us in a state of mind in which we can communicate to this spiritual being that's greater to ourselves. So in some ways, I'm for some of the traditions that we have there. It's all about spiritual growth. And I think this was a wise choice. Yes, he was a long shot. He was definitely a long shot. And we've learned in the past, just like if you bet on the Derby, the most wanted horses or predictable horses are not going to win usually, except for Secretariat. So usually it's a horse that we've never seen that comes from the back and pushes on and surprises everybody. But the top horses, for the most part, usually don't win. So the same thing here. You had the political CNN or Good Morning America did a thing where they picked the 5 top people. 4 of them were the most popular ones, and they thought surely out of those 4, they were good. One of those 4 was going to be the Pope. They were heavily leading towards the Filipino because they kept saying how much he was like Pope Francis, and he was handpicked, and all of a sudden the 5th one was this dark horse that nobody knew. So that's the way that spirit is. I look at the group picture from Decatur of all of us deacons and exhorters that we had at the time and there's only 2 of us left, Virginia and myself. I'm the dark horse. Who would have thought that in all of those people that I would still be in ministry and that I would still be a reverend? None of those other people in that picture became a minister. None of them, but I did. So in a way, I'm like a dark horse. I'll have to show you that picture, that group picture. You've seen it before. But the church is a funny thing. You either love it or you don't love it. There's aspects of people that we love that we don't love. And it's always going to be that way. The church still hurts people. It hurt people back in the past, and it continues to hurt people now. Paul said, keep your eyes on the prize. Keep your eyes on the prize. And that's what he says. Don't deviate. Keep your eyes on the goal. The goal is where it is. All of this other stuff, all of this barnacle stuff, all of this political stuff, doesn't matter. Keep your eyes on the prize. And that's where we need to focus on our own spiritual growth. However that looks, whether it's Buddhist or meditation or drumming circles, doesn't matter. As long as if you incorporate it in your Christian life, fine. But keep your eyes on the prize and grow spiritually. Because in the end, I guarantee you, as a hospice chaplain, it's only going to be you and spirit. That's it. that's it. And
Yeah, they're
that
good
is the only time that we have left.
answers.
That was beautiful.
Yeah,
that was, you preach it. That's
yep,
beautiful.
yep, yep.
Leo and Jared have their hand raised, and so we need this to be pretty quick. We're coming to the end of our time, and then I'll take a volunteer, since Craigor's not here, to close it, to pray us out. Go ahead, Leo.
And yes, Mona, I love every single thing that you just said, because I kind of been saying that, especially, connect it, please.
Okay. Yeah.
I kind of been saying the same thing over and over to my husband, that I don't care what religion you are, as long as you have a God that you pray to. And like Mona said, either if you're Buddhism, Catholic, whatever it is. And just like Mona said, I do agree with some things that the Catholic Church did or does. I'm sorry, my iPad is
Okay. Perfect.
I'm sorry. So in my personal experience, one of the things that, like Mona said, that the Catholic Church, and I've been saying this over and over, that the Catholic Church does a disservice to their members, because they don't really, I have been going to a Catholic church for 20 plus years, and no one had ever approached me about Bible study. No one had ever approached me about youth ministry. No one ever approached me about, just learning more about the Bible, right? And I guess that in a way, they don't want you to read the Bible, because even if you do go to Sunday school, they don't provide you with a Bible. There's just one teacher teaching what they want to teach, basically. And I do believe that that's true, because as a teenager, I would always have a Bible, right? But magically, my Bible would disappear. And who else would get rid of the Bible if it was mom, which it was probably my mom or my dad, right? And that's why I keep saying in these Bible studies that we go to, that this is my first time to actually read the Bible. And I know that a lot of people go on there and they're kind of like timid or shy or embarrassed of actually saying, hey, I don't know much about the Bible, or I grew up in the church, but I don't know verse by verse. But yeah, that was my experience from the Catholic Church. And like I said, this is my first time to actually read the Bible and to actually have my own Bible. Yeah.
I think that's very common, and I mean that's what Luther was all about, was getting the Bible in people's hands in their own language. And so that's one of the things that he was criticized for. And by the way, Luther was also of an Augustinian order, like our new Pope is. So he's definitely the least popular of, historically, of those from the Augustinian order. But anyway, and Vatican II, I think, was all about trying to modernize some of that, and even just to get services in people's own language, as opposed to in Latin, where it was, it was definitely ritualized, but it wasn't meant for people to understand and develop their own belief systems. It was more, we're putting this on you, kind of thing. So I think those are very good points, and I'm very glad you found a different way and are taking the initiative yourself. And I think that there are more and more Catholics who are doing that as well. Real quick, Marco, you want to just say hi to everyone before we say goodbye?
Bye-bye. Yay.
Everybody's happy to see you.
Marco,
Okay, who's volunteering to pray us out?
I give it a whirl.
Excellent, Suzette. I know you've said so much about
I'm gonna learn to
Rome.
pray you out. I'm gonna pray us out. Holy
Great.
God, Holy Spirit, Holy One, we come together tonight as we do every Thursday night. And tonight I think of us as a cohort of the Spirit. And you have taken us on a journey of papal learning, and those of us who have had faith brought to us in all kinds of different ways, we look to you for the answers. The answers are not here on earth. The answers are not spewed by men. The answers are going to come from you and you alone. So let us take the words that we've spoken tonight. Let us process them. Let us learn from them. And let us continue to have these conversations every single week that bring us closer to you. In these words, I pray to you, and in Jesus's many names. Amen.
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 Amen. Thank you so much. That was beautiful. And all these words about transformation are giving me ideas for future topics. So, so stay tuned. Hope to see you all next week. Lots of love.
Love you guys.
Be safe.
Hey, Suzette,
Yeah. Can we
good
stay on for a
moment.
minute?
Is the office email for Resurrection MCC down? I just sent an email, a couple email out to the network, and the one to the church came back.
Say it again. Which one?
The info@resurrectionmcc.org. That's the normal church office email address.
Where are you sending it from a Yahoo email?
No, it's from the USMCC, the mccchurch.net email address. I have sent it successfully from the network mailbox.
Can you forward it to me, Suzette at resurrectionmcc.org?
Are you talking about the failure message or the one
Forward the bounce.
Okay.
So I can look into it. But if you want me to disseminate whatever it is you're trying to send, just
Okay.
send it to me and I'll make sure it gets to our leadership teams.
All right. Yeah, because y'all don't have a pastor either, so
Yeah,
let me see.
I'll make sure it gets
Can
to
you
Raymond.
type out your email address somewhere to make sure?
Mine, Suzette, SUZETTE at resurrectionmcc.org.
Okay, let me forward that. So SUTT